Hey folks, I'm Mark Ryan. This is Super Review, and this is the Moondrop Aria Snow Edition. So, just over a year ago, I think it was, I reviewed the original Moondrop Aria. It's an IM you're by no doubt familiar with by now. And well, now they're back here with the Snow Edition, which is still an $80 IM, but they've got some cosmetic changes, some hardware changes that I'm actually pretty excited about, which we'll find out as we unbox this thing. But maybe more to the point are going to be some of the changes that are under the hood. So, for starters, right, it's still a single dynamic driver earphone like the last Aria, but they're using a little bit different language to describe it. And if I've got it correct, but they're based on the listing on Shenzhen Audio, it sounds like the driver in this Aria Snow Edition might be the same driver that they used in the Moondrop Canas Pro, which was like a premium Moondrop single dynamic driver IM from a couple of years ago. But what I'm even more interested in is that ostensibly, from what I understand, they've slightly retuned the Aria Snow Edition. Now, if you recall my review, I like the original Aria. I think it's a very good IM for $80, but it's maybe a little bit on the bassy, kind of warm, thick side for my taste, as you know my taste. And I'm kind of curious to see which direction did they take the Moondrop Aria Snow? And that's what we're gonna find out today. So this video is not a review. I have not unboxed this thing. I have not heard this thing, so I can't tell you what I think about it. But what I can do, so we can unbox it together. We'll see what we get inside the box of the Moondrop Aria Snow Edition. And then I'm gonna attempt to throw it up on my measurement rig, which I've got sitting right here. This is my microphone. We're gonna measure the frequency response of the Aria Snow. Compare it to the frequency response that I measured from the original Aria and make some conjectures about what this thing might sound like. So if you're here now live, we're doing this live, and there's a chance that some stuff might break. So if I get through this thing without cursing, that'll be great. Otherwise, I would just strap in and prepare for that. There's not going to be a score at the end of this video. There is going to be, however, a squig, and we're going to update squig.link in real time. If you're here now live with me, check out squig.link, and if you're not watching live, well, this measurement's already there, so there's spoilers. But anyway, like I mentioned, I saw this listing on Shenzhen Audio. They did send this out to me for evaluation. So if you want to check out the Moondrop Aria Snow Edition, I do have a link to Shenzhen Audio in the description down below. But otherwise, I think let's just jump to the table, start unboxing this IEM. So first of all, packaging here on the Moondrop Aria Snow. We do have different cover art, box art, and I think this is actually pretty cool. It's one of the classier looking Moondrop box arts in my opinion. And then on the back of here, they do have, some spoilers. There's some specs. If you recall, man, it's been a while since I looked at specs on the back of a box in a live stream. But, we still got our same 0.782 pin connector. No surprise there. 119 dB VRMS, which just as a heads up, that is not the same thing as 119 dB per milliwatt if you're used to seeing those sensitivity ratings, and that's essentially what that is. This is an impedance of 32 ohms. You can't really tell too much from this. What I'm going to say is I'm going to go out on a limb and say the Aria, in terms of drivability, will be not the most sensitive IM out there, but perfectly average sensitivity is what I come to expect from Moondrop. But of course, they've got their claims of, well, it's interesting. They've got two different claims about frequency response. What is that? Between 15 hertz and 50,000 hertz, but the effective frequency response is 20. I don't know what that means. I mean, effective means that's what the human ear is able to hear, I'm guessing. But it's interesting that they bothered putting both of those numbers on there. Otherwise, I don't know, that's not too interesting. Which may be more interesting here is the frequency response. And yes, I told you, we're gonna squig this thing in real time and get a frequency response. So why bother though, when Moondrop's already done it for us? Well, for a couple of reasons. One, we gotta validate for ourselves. That's what we do. But maybe more importantly, like when you are looking at frequency responses of IEMs, I think it's very important to keep in mind that you should not be comparing frequency responses from one source to another. So if you see this squig and then you go on squig.link and look up the original Moondrop Aria, there is not a lot for you to realistically come away from that. You need to see the thing measured on the same microphone, both the original Aria and the new Aria Snow in order to really make any solid inferences. So that's just a little bit of a disclaimer. But yeah, I guess enough lollygagging. Let's go ahead and crack this box open and see what is inside. That to the side. You have Moondrop logo here on the front. Otherwise, looking like a box. Got magnets, of course. Appreciate that. I like to see magnets. You got your earpieces there. We'll leave those for last. Let's dive into here. Well, let's see. This is just a door that says Snow Edition. It's classy, but okay. You've got some sort of QC card. Good to see, I suppose. And it looks like we've got the accessories and stuff stored inside of a case, or we've got a case at least. Let's see if there's maybe more hidden underneath here. There does seem to be more hidden under here. So we've got another box. And work our way around this, navigate this box. Slide everything out. And all right, we've got some instructions. We've got a QR code for the QR code enthusiast. There you go. You lost your chance. That was it. Otherwise, let's see. We've got a couple of different sets of ear tips in here. And this is one of the changes. I alluded to some hardware changes that I was excited about. This is one of them that I'm pretty excited about. So what we have here is Moondrop's typical tips. That's not too exciting. I mean, it's exciting. Moondrop has a decent set of default tips, but what I'm more excited about is this. This is a full set of spring tips. And I know I've shilled these spring tips for a long time. I still use these on a lot of my IMs. And the reason that I like spring tips, and I will show you that specifically, it's not because of what they do for the sound. I know a lot of people, they think about ear tips as these audio enhancing things, and like they can absolutely change the sound. But what I would say about how ear tips are likely to change the sound, at least in my experience, is that it's kind of unpredictable. So when I select an ear tip, I'm usually starting from a perspective of selecting an ear tip for fit. When it comes to the effect that it has on the sound, that's when I evaluate it, right? I find something that fits well, and then I evaluate its effect on the sound. Usually the effect of an ear tip is pretty minor, but sometimes you can get some pretty significant changes just as the ear tip changes things like, one, the quality of the seal, right? How tight of a seal are you getting? Is it leaking out any bass? An ear tip can absolutely do that for you. Another thing is like, how deep is the ear tip sitting? And this is actually be an interesting example. You know, the length on these ear tips looks like it's roughly the same. I don't know if I'm holding up like for like sizes, but the length on these looks roughly the same. But what's different about spring tips, and this is probably difficult to show exactly on the camera, but you might notice that the nozzle over here on the standard Moondrop ear tip is going all the way to the base of this mushroom hood. And then here on the spring tip, it's a little bit recessed, right? So the hood is actually going past the tip. And basically what I'm suggesting is that when you are comparing these things in terms of size, you should compare them based on the base of the hood, the base of the nozzle. And this is a long, very not elegant way of saying that usually my experience with Moondrop spring tips is that they fit a little bit more shallow than other tips, which can be both a good thing or a bad thing depending on your earphone. So while I'm a big fan of spring tips, I don't use them all the time because, again, it's kind of like depends on the IM, depends on how it's going to fit with me. And then once I've got a good fit, is that somewhat more shallow fit doing good things for the frequency response or bad things? And that is, again, very dependent on the IM. So I guess that's just a little bit of a disclaimer up front. For all you folks out there who are shopping for ear tips and wondering which ear tips bring out the best sound stage or give you the best bass, my experience is it certainly varies depending on your ear and the IEM, which is a very difficult thing for me to predict. I apologize. Yeah, let me move these things over here. There's actually still more surprises for us to discover. I think I'll find them here inside the case. This is where I'm guessing for my second hardware update that I'm excited about. Let's see, and I was right. So what we've got here is a new cable. You know, the cable that came on the original Moondrop Aria, it's a bit controversial. And you know, I didn't really have many problems with it. It's a cloth covered cable. I think it looks pretty nice. But people definitely had issues with the durability of that cable, especially people that don't know how to roadie wrap. I'm not throwing shade, but I'm kind of throwing shade. But in either case, I am elated to see that they have gone with this cable instead. This is the cable off of Moondrop SSR and the SSP, which is actually one of my favorite cables, if not my absolute favorite cable of all time. I'm not kidding. Like, this is a cable from a $40 earphone. I put it on some more expensive earphones. In fact, I've got a set over here, a $700 set of Moondrop S8s that I've got this cable on because I like it so much. And why do I like it? Well, for starters, let's go back to the table. You can see that behavior-wise, it's very good. It doesn't fight me, it doesn't kink up, it doesn't hold memory. It's lightweight, it's thin. It's basically just a perfect cable. The only qualms that I have with this cable are a couple of things, all right? One, this Y-split, it's a bit on the chonky side. It's, you know, I get over it, don't worry. You will get over it too, but I do wish it was a little bit slimmer. The other thing that I think this cable could use is a chin cinch. There's no chin cinch. You get it. There's no chin cinch on this cable, which is a bit of a missed opportunity, just because I've found myself to prefer wearing a chin cinch, but it's also not totally a requirement because you do have preformed ear hooks up here, and I don't know, generally fit on this cable is pretty good. I just like a little bit of added security. So very excited about this switch to spring tips and the SSR cable. But let's go ahead and take a look at the earpieces themselves as they drop out of this box. Let me make sure I'm not missing anything else in there. I'm not. I will drop this box to the side. Take a look at the earpieces here on the Moondrop Aria Snow. I should have pulled out the original Aria for comparisons. I do have it not too far off. Maybe during the Q&A section I'll step out and grab it. But I don't know, there you go. Take a look here at the Moondrop Aria Snow. I think aesthetically, the pattern on the outside is actually more subtle than I expected. I'd seen this, of course, in pictures and had a good idea of what I was gonna be seeing, but I think the pattern here is actually more subtle and fainter than I expected, which I'm not mad about. If you're looking for a really showy design or anything like that, you might be disappointed, but I think the look is mostly gonna be about this matte silver coloring that they've got all around the shell, which is a pretty significant departure from the all black coloring of the original Aria. Now, as I just got done talking about those spring tips, you might be surprised to see me putting on the original Moondrop tips. And the reason for this is that I want to do my measurement with the original tips because that's how the original Aria was measured. And like I mentioned, the influences on frequency response of a tip are a little bit unpredictable. So just to take that variable out of consideration, we'll stick with the original Moondrop tips as I wire this thing up. And I guess I'll give it one last roadie wrap so you can appreciate what it looks like. And I guess I'll do also a little bit of a fit test. There's not going to be any surprises here. This is going to fit like pretty much all of other Moondrop's other single dynamic driver earphones. As I roadie wrap this thing together clumsily. And there you go. That is what a Moondrop Aria Snow Edition looks like. I think it's pretty handsome. Is that better looking than the original Moondrop Aria? I'm actually curious for the folks that are here in the live stream right now. What's your vote for aesthetics? Do you prefer the all black aesthetic of the original Aria, or do you like this lighter snow color aesthetic? With that out of the way, I guess I'll do that bit of a fit test just for conversation's sake. Show you what this thing looks like inside of an ear. My general impression of Moondrop's IMs is that this is kind of like a medium-sized single dynamic driver earphone. You saw that the ingress egress is super easy, about as easy as it gets. Boom. Comfort, I would say, is it's good. I never really had any complaints about the comfort of a Moondrop single dynamic driver earphone. The only quibble that I will have with these things is in terms of fit security, and this is a common thing I will say about single dynamic driver earphones. They're not all like this, but it's pretty common that they're just not there's nothing on the shape that custom molds it to the inside of my ear, right? So it's a pretty generic shape, and again, it fits comfortably, but in terms of fit security and stability, sometimes I do find myself having to just kind of reseat these dynamic driver IMs over time. But yeah, that's what comes inside the box. That's what it looks like. That's what it looks like inside my ear. So how's it squig? Let's find that out, and let's attempt to do that here in real time. I'll warn you, I have been having issues with my screen share over here, so if this becomes a problem, I apologize. But what we're looking at here is the software that I and many other IM reviewers and graphers use for measuring frequency responses. So I'm reaching over here to plug the IM into a microphone. Here is said microphone. And effectively what we're going to do, if you haven't seen me do this before, I'm going to take the IM, insert it into, well, there we go, put that on camera, insert it into the microphone like so, and through this software, I'm going to play a sine wave. I'm going to play just a very obnoxious sound that the microphone picks up and is able to read the frequency response of the IM. So without further ado, let's try and make it happen. Grab my keyboard real quick. Set volume to where I typically do. Did my thing freeze up? It did. It froze up like I warned you about, I think. Oh, interesting. I can still see it over here. All right. Well, let's see how well this goes. So let's measure that frequency response. Okay, so there's squig 1, and what I want to do is make sure that we are getting this. You see this little peak that shows up right here, and in fact, it's showing up a little bit too deep into the frequency response. I want that to line up with this line that I've just put at about 8,000 hertz. So I'm going to reposition the IM and remake that squig. It's good to know that we can get that pretty deep. All right, let's try once more. Okie dokie, does that look better? It looks a little bit better. It still looks like we're a little bit deep on that. So I'm gonna pull it out and go even a little bit more shallow. Just so that when we are making this frequency response comparison inside a squig link, we've got as few inconsistencies as possible. Does that look any better? I feel like I've not moved it much. I'm gonna try one more time. I don't wanna basically what I'm probably gonna do after this video too, right now I'm just measuring the left channel. What I'm gonna do after this video is I'm gonna measure both the left and the right channels, and then I'm also gonna measure it with both sets of tips so you can make that comparison. Again, not necessarily a lot that you can pull from that, because it's how these tips affect the frequency response in the coupler might be different from how they affect the frequency response inside your ear, but it is still, you know, interesting data. And that one feels like it's not quite shallow, or it's a little bit too shallow. I'm gonna try one more. I lied. I said I was gonna do one more. I'm gonna do one more. This is the exciting life of an IEM reviewer, FYI. Let's see, does that one look? That one looks pretty good. All right, so I'm gonna label that one L, and then I'm going to export this real quickly. Moondrop Aria Snow L. Okay. Then I'm not going to show you this quite yet. I am going to go over here and see if everything I did. All right, that looks good. So now here's where the fun part happens. I'm going to upload this to squig.link right now. So if you're not there right now, head over to squig.link. If you are there, well, I guess, hit refresh or something. Okay, I'm gonna come back over here. And if I refresh Squiglink myself, I'm gonna do I'll hold the shift key just to make sure I'm getting the latest version. There we go. We've got the Moondrop Aria Snow Edition. All right, there's our squig of the Moondrop Aria Snow. Now we can start making some comparisons with the original Moondrop Aria. In fact, I can pull that up here and we can see what differences we're looking at. So what I've got right now is I've got, the blue line is the original Moondrop Aria, the green line is the new Aria Snow Edition. And as you can look at, let me remove that for now, that target. As you look at the graph up here, you can start to see where the differences are, okay? So the big difference, honestly, is gonna be over here in sort of the sub-bass region. And if you're not familiar with what all these different regions of the frequency response mean, here on squig.link, right, you can click on sub-bass. Or you can click on any of these sections and kind of just get a little readout, right? So sub-bass frequencies generally responsible for the rumble, that texture and sort of the sub-bass. It's like the bass that you feel it more than you hear it usually. Yeah, and just usually having an added sense or a additional elevated sub-bass in the I don't know what words I'm using. If you have elevated sub-bass, you usually are going to get a little bit more kind of a sense of depth to your music. But here we've actually got it rolled off a little bit. It's reduced in bass, which, like I mentioned up front, I like the Moondrop Aria as it was, but I did find it to be a little bit on the bassy side. However, what's interesting is that where I would have expected the bass reduction to happen is more here in the mid-bass region. And as we can see, the mid-bass region of the Aria versus the Aria Snow Edition, it seems like it's basically the same. It doesn't really look like they've changed it in that. It's just in the sub-bass, which is an interesting change to make. I gotta say, probably not where I would have focused it personally. Lower mid-range, upper mid-range looking very much the same. Although you can start to see here in the upper mid-range and in the presence region, the green line again being the Snow Edition, it does look like there is a little bit of extra energy on the Snow Edition. And what that's likely to do is add just a little bit of additional clarity on top. So given the fact that they have not reduced the mid bass, but that they have added a bit of clarity up top here in the presence and upper mid-range region, that could have kind of the same effect that I was looking for. We'll see when I hear it. We'll see. But that's interesting. And then it does also look like in kind of the mid-treble region, it looks like there is, maybe even could call this the air region. It does look like there is a bit of additional treble. This, I'll say right here, it's difficult to make many conclusions about the frequency response comparisons past about 7,000 hertz because things just get a little bit less predictable. There could be unit variance, very likely causing differences up here. But if I were to just interpret this as it is, it looks like we've got maybe a little bit more sort of this mid-upper treble presence and slightly reduced air frequencies. This is actually interesting. If that's an intentional change, I would actually say it's a smart change. The Aria, the Starfield, and the KXXS, they all kind of have this characteristic spike in the upper treble frequencies, and personally, it doesn't bother me. What it does tend to do is it kind of adds a sense of, and you can read the description of air frequencies down here. It does tend to add a bit of dimensionality to the sound, a bit of a 3D-ness, generally having some sort of elevated upper treble frequencies, but some people find it irritating, and maybe it's younger people that have more sensitive ears, or maybe it's just people that are more sensitive for other reasons. Some people definitely, told me that they thought that the Aria was like too wispy sounding, and the way that you would address that if you were doing that intentionally, if indeed what we're looking at is an intentional change, the way that you would do that is you would lower the upper treble elevation and add in a little bit of that mid upper treble to kind of balance it out and make it sound a little bit more even rather than like this big contrast. So that's pretty interesting to see. Another way to look at these differences is I can take the original Moondrop Aria and set it as a baseline. That's what this little squiggly icon does. And what that does is then it really highlights the differences between these IMs. So again, here in the sub bass, you can see that the Snow Edition is definitely dipping in the sub bass. Here's where you can kind of maybe a little bit more easily see that elevation in the upper mid-range and presence region. And then again, here, this is where you can see that difference in the air, which again, I would caution against reading too much into, but if I'm being optimistic, that looks like a good change. So that is about as much, honestly, as I can tell you about the Moondrop Aria Snow Edition at this point. I'm not sure if I'm going to do a full review on this thing. What I want to do is I want to spend some time listening to it and basically just decide, does it seem like this warrants an all-new review? I'm not going to do that right now because you guys don't need to sit here and watch me listen to an IM, but if you are kind of curious in updates on that, I would recommend joining my Discord server, which I have linked in the description down below. Join the Discord server. I've got a room dedicated to the Moondrop Aria. I'll share some initial impressions, some listening impressions, and kind of get a feel for interest levels, I guess, in a new review of the Aria Snow Edition. Because, you know, you probably noticed I'm not doing quite as many reviews as I was doing about a year ago, and I got to pick my time. Should I dedicate my time to reviewing the Moondrop Aria Snow Edition? Kind of curious for your opinion on that, but really it's going to be kind of up to how much difference do I actually perceive when I'm listening to it. So that's about going to do it for this video. You know, if you're here live, stick around. We'll have a little bit of a conversation, but otherwise, if you found this video helpful or interesting and you like seeing the squigs in real time, please hit the like button. It helps me out. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Join the Discord server and ding the YouTube bell. Discord server is actually apparently better at alerting you to my next live stream than YouTube is, but it doesn't hurt to do both. And ostensibly, I'll catch you on the next super review again, unless you're here live, in which case, hang out and let's chat while I sip some lime water.